Hello everyone. Today we will talk about an error called PeerFloodError, which recently started appearing on a large number of accounts during various actions, namely sending messages and invitations. First of all, I would like to say that the occurrence of this error is related to updates from Telegram filters. Meaning you should understand that Telegram is constantly improving its filters and other aspects in terms of combating spam messages and invitations. And therefore, it is evolving. And as it evolves, it becomes more difficult to work with. And the task for users who want to continue using Telegram is to find new options. Adapt to the current situation, find new approaches, combinations, and workarounds. All of this is done through testing by changing variables such as accounts and other factors used in messaging and invitations to find ways that work. Today, I would like to focus specifically on this error because there are many questions from you as software users. As I mentioned earlier, this error occurs due to Telegram filters during messaging and invitations. Based on tests, conclusions can be drawn. Of course, no one will tell you all the schemes and approaches because it is a personal matter for each user, and each user tests and finds these methods, combinations, and approaches through trial and error, spending their money, time, and effort. I will try to explain some general points. The problem often arises in the software. Let me show you. For example, after 1, after 5, after 3 invitations or messages, you encounter the PeerFloodError. Accordingly, there is a bypass for this error in the software settings. But since the error depends on many factors, the software cannot always bypass it. Here, as we can see, there is a setting for PeerFlood. It allows you to specify how many times to ignore the error. Here you specify the number of times the software will skip and under what conditions it will help you. For example, the software can skip 2-3-4-5 users, ignoring this error, and continue performing the task, whether it's messaging or invitations. You need to test these aspects if you encounter such issues. Some users do not encounter this error and have not encountered it before. But since Telegram is improving its filters, it is likely that you will encounter it in the near future. And someone from the software support team will send you a link to this video for you to watch. If, for example, bypassing the flood does not help you anymore, it means you need to dig into your resources, namely the country of the accounts you work with and the audience you work with. In the past, there were fewer geographical restrictions or patterns. Now there are many more. For example, if you encounter errors like PeerFloodError and often don't know what to do, try changing the country of your accounts or try changing the audience you work with. It's better to gather it from different sources, mix it up, and so on. Now let me demonstrate. Here are identical accounts. And let's see in the messaging. Let's just use the text from our variables. It doesn't matter which one. Let it be the name, last name, and username of the user we are sending to. We have specified 40 messages from the account. We insert one list of users. Here are users from the CIS countries. We choose our account. We set random values and launch our software. We see the first message set, the second message set, the third message sent, and then the PeerFloodError occurred. Then another one was set. You can see that one error is ignored, and then it continues, and on every user, no matter how many times this account tries to send, there will be this error. Here we see that another message was sent to someone. To some rare users, after ignoring and skipping, the software still sends the messages. But still, not everyone can send, and there is a lot of flooding. This is because there is a certain dependency, as this account has been registered for 14 days. But there are still too many errors, and the more errors there are, the less actual simming there is. From this account now, approximately 15 to 20 requests have already been set. About 5 to 6 messages, but the sending is not going well. Let's stop the task. If the delay on the accounts was slightly less, the frequent problem that users encounter is exactly after the third message. PeerFlood and nothing else. Either after the fifth message, after the fourth, and so on. Some geos work, some don't, but the main points, as I have already told you, of the country targeting the audience. Experiment with these variables and try to find the geos of accounts that may not necessarily have an exact match, but should be in line with the audience. Experiment with other countries. Maybe you will find the ones that work perfectly in your case. Here, let's choose a similar account. Exactly the same, but let's take a different audience. I am inserting a different audience. It is the entire Europe. That is, a mix of the European audience, and our account is from England, as we can see. And we start the distribution. As we can see, 3 messages have already been sent. On the 4th message, we had a PeerFlood error on the previous account, but here it is already gone. The text, as you can see, is the same, everything is the same. The accounts are the same, from the same batch with the same registration period. The only thing that has changed is the audience. The audience is completely active, which was in the first case and in the second case. But in the second case, we have the European audience. We see that we have already sent more than 10 messages and only 1 PeerFlood error, and thus the accounts can send. I will not go into specific numbers because it is all individual. Some can send 15, some can send 20, some can send 30 and 40, but it is all individual. In this situation, you can see that due to the change in the audience, which differs only in the geolocation targeting of this audience, only the number of set messages changes. Let's stop here. The result significantly differs even with such small delays, with the same text and other variables. And if you are sending, for example, text and a link, all these moments are also being tested. The same situation applies to invitations, because here you also need to test these moments. You may have a check in which all of this is based on experience. Everything I say and everything I tell you are real examples of work. For example, if you are sending invitations, and if people do not enter your chat, there is such an error. Also in software like PeerFlood, but if you try manually inviting people to the chat, adding people, Then Telegram will write to you, wait later, meaning try later. You can try changing the country of your used accounts and also try inviting the same audience from these accounts. And with a high probability, you will not have this error either through software or manually. In other words, Telegram has limited the filters to such an extent that they have made some serious connection to the country with the accounts that are sending and the country of the audience. That is why recently, if you have noticed and encountered this problem, you have many questions regarding this peer flooding error. I have just demonstrated it to you with a vivid example that a lot depends on the audience. Accordingly, the same depends on the country of the accounts. This does not mean that you need to rush and buy, for example, for distribution in Russia to Russian users, take Russian accounts. It is not necessary to do this. The same 3 to 5 messages from an account per day are not a panacea, and you can work with them smoothly with the same. For example, Africa. Invite smoothly, or depending on the audience, and so on. But here my task is simply to explain about this error. It is specifically related to the limitations on Telegram's side, meaning this problem is not in the software. This problem is now for everyone and everywhere because these restrictions come from Telegram, not from any software. Therefore, test in this regard, study, try. You don't need to spend too much time and accounts to test for yourself, taking into account the information I gave you. But regarding this error, it applies to both distribution and invitations at the moment. Regarding the warming up of accounts, it also affects, as well as the time since registration on the accounts. But the aging effect is less significant, at least at the time of recording this video. And warming up the accounts affects their viability. That is, we have a module, for example, for warming up, a booster. Either already at the time of the release of this video, or in the near future, when the software update comes out, there will be some additional features for improved, let's say, warming up of your accounts. Therefore, if you encounter such a problem, such an error, I advise you to experiment and test approaches. The main points I mentioned to you are the audience and the country of the accounts. By testing with this method, you will find the perfect approach, the perfect combination, and so on. I would also like to add that you should periodically read our Messenger sphere, chat. If you are not registered there on this YouTube channel, there is a video on registration because answers to questions are periodically written in the chat and directions for tests are given, some hints and other details. The main thing to remember is that no one will tell you, especially in a public chat or in a video, to take this country, take these proxies and send them like this and like that. No one will give you an exact template for work because, as you can see for yourself, as I have already mentioned, Telegram periodically tightens all its spam filters and introduces some additional limits and when information enters the public space. And this applies not only to chats or videos, but even when you share information with a friend. For example, let's say, people you don't trust much. Well, or not very familiar with something else, and you spread this information, distributed it in chats, and as a result, this information. Let's put it this way, Telegram developers found out and soon tightened some aspects in the work and filters of Telegram, And thus, what worked yesterday, as I periodically say, is not guaranteed to work tomorrow. So in the modern world, we need to adapt to the current realities of working with Telegram if you want to continue working with Telegram. Learn to test, think of new approaches, think of new options. What I have provided in this video is purely based on tests by the entire team of software developers. And this is only a small part of the information that will help you steer in the right direction and give you some thoughts, some points, and save you time, money, accounts for testing. And thus, it will help you in further work with Telegram. So test, study, find new approaches, find new options. And finally, I almost forgot a little bit. If you have watched the video to the end, that's good, because now I wanted to mention some points. Currently, the method of sending content by you depends to a lesser extent, but there is also a dependence on it in sending. For example, you need to test different approaches. So if, for example, reposting doesn't work for you, you need to try some other method. It is not necessary to focus only on reposting from the channel. Yes, you can test it, study the information, try, and with persistence and hard work, you will find an approach if we are talking, for example, about mailings. But you can also test other options, other methods. Regular text sending, or you will come up with something else. Sending through bots and so on. In fact, there are many methods and options. You just need to test. The same goes for inviting people to chats. If it doesn't work in one chat, or is mentioned in one of the videos, if the counter doesn't count participants in the chat, but people are added in recent actions, then let the chat rest, because there are actually many options for work, and invitations primarily depend on warming up the chat and the approach you are using. There is no need to rush and hurry, especially with invitations, because haste will not lead to anything good the faster you try to make an invitation. If you want to promote your chat for the future, the worse it will be. Do not rush and hurry. Warm up your chats well and qualitatively. If you have any orders, fulfill them accordingly, qualitatively, competently, and test. Try, as I have repeatedly said. And another point about geo accounts, as I told you, if, for example, it doesn't work for your audience from your accounts, try from CIS accounts. These are different countries from the CIS, not necessarily Russia. The same goes for Europe. There are many different countries there. If, for example, your audience is in Asia and it doesn't work from European accounts or any other accounts, and you get this error, the same applies by analogy. It is not necessary for the country to match the country, because for the most part, visually you will not know which country the audience is from. That is, conditionally, for example, CIS, Europe, Asia's like that. That's the concept. Otherwise, test. Some information has been provided to you, so study, try, test. It's all in your hands. I hope you have heard what I told you, so good luck to everyone. Goodbye to everyone.